decided to use your psychic skills to investigate crimes and frauds?
Um, well, this was in the mid-70s. I wasn't making money out of my talents. I refused to. I had become totally disenchanted with the world of spiritualism and had broken away from it. And I suddenly thought, you know, I can do something, and I've got to do something. I had met my wife by then, having divorced my first wife, and I decided that I wasn't going to go back as a skilled, trained engineer. And an advert appeared in a newspaper for a banking group who wanted an external investigator. And I applied for the job. To my absolute amazement, I got it. And I was, how can I put it? I was a spy in the corner. I had to investigate everything from fraud, deception, even to within the company wrongdoings. I was taught civil law and the aspects of fraud in relation to civil law, and I carried on for some time doing this, perfectly happy, damn good salary. I was traveling, my area was the bottom half of England to cover. And all was going well until one day I rang out and said, look, I've got this terrible back problem. There's nothing I can do. I can't drive the car. But I can get to the London office and I can work from the London office. No, the regulations are if you're sick, you cannot work. So I said, okay. And I'm sitting at home, a little fed up, and I get a phone call from a lawyer who said, Mr. Cracknell, da-da-da. I represent a gentleman by the name of Oscar Mirth. Okay, you know the story. I went, I came back, and the first thing on my return, I get a phone call from my boss saying, what in the name of sweet God are you doing? You know, get yourself up to head office here. I went up there, and they said, okay, hand in your credit cards, hand in your car, you're fired. And I said, why? What have I done wrong? The story was plastered all over the place. And they said, because everybody knows you now. You're supposed to be undercover, but everybody knows you. So we agreed on a compromise, and I left the company. And I just said to my wife, now I know the business, I'll set up my own company. And me and my wife, we set it up in our lounge, telephone, set it up. And within a very short time, it became one of the most successful investigation agencies in Southeast London. We employed 30 people. And one of my best clients was the banking group that sacked me. And we traveled all over the world, finding people who didn't want to be found, tracing criminals, and in between time I was getting involved in other mysteries which involved murders and disappearances for the police.
So let's talk about this topics. Which was your first big case in the crime field?
The first major one was called the Southern Organ case. And this is where two con men had literally taken banks and finance groups and gullible members of their staff for about £6 million and disappeared. This is where I and the police fell out publicly. I was approached by this Daily Express to work for them, and they said that they would give me all access to everything. A television program was made about this case, and the police said that based on the evidence They left UK in a helicopter. They arrived in Calais. Their friends got a postcard from Calais to say, now we're off on our holiday. They were convinced that they had used France as a jumping off point and they could be anywhere on the continent. And I was brought in and I said, no, they're back in this country, they're in Scotland. And they said, can you narrow it down? I said, yes, a place called Ullapool. By then, the media had picked up the fact that I was working on the case, and they went to the police and said, okay, what about Bob Cracknell? And this policeman said, we deal in facts. We don't listen to cranks. And this was the headlines. So I got in touch with the police and put in an official complaint and said, you've called me a crank. You've damaged my reputation. I am not a crank. And I make a formal complaint. They came to interview me and take down my statement. And he said, okay, where are they? I said, I've told you, they're in Ullapool. It's a connection with the church. Okay. I also said, I know the man who brought them here. The one man who you believe is totally innocent. Cut a long story short, I then fell out with the newspaper because I went to interview this man and I called him a liar. I said, you're a liar, you know where these men are. And he said, get out of my office. I get out of my house, made an official complaint to the newspaper, and they said, no, you can't call people liar, not working for us. So I traveled up to Ullapool myself because I knew that's where they were. Came back, and again the police were saying to me, okay, we've voiced your complaint, and one of the journalists waiting outside said, okay, if they're in Ullapool, when are they coming back? And I just suddenly looked at him and I said, they will be arrested on Friday. Where will they be arrested? I said, Ullapool. The police were determined to make me wrong and to justify them calling me a crank. And 3 days later on the Friday, I get a telephone call, duck your head for God's sake, the media's after you. They were arrested in Ullapool this morning. And that's recorded. This is all fact.
What about Jeanette Tate case?
That was that's one that's still unsolved. The body has never been found. The murderer has never been arrested. I was called in officially by the police, Devon and Cornwall. They called me in officially to assist them. And the media releases were indicating this was a happy-go-lucky little girl, had no problems, no worries, suddenly goes off to school on her bicycle. The next thing is they find the bicycle lying in the middle of the road, no Jeanette Tate, she's disappeared off the face of the earth. So the police said, what do you need? I said, I would like to be able to touch the bike. They brought the bike in for me. I said, okay, I now want to go and see the family. I said, okay, they took me to the family and I walked in and thought, no. I just said to the mother, can I talk to you alone? And let's go upstairs, I want to talk to her. The police looked at me rather askance and I said to her, now I want you to tell me the truth. Something serious has gone wrong. She's not happy, she wasn't happy. I believe her father's been assaulting her. And she more or less confessed that this was the case. And this is the one thing that puzzles me about the whole case. I came down and the police were looking at me somewhat askance. I said, okay, let's go. And he said, so what was all that about? I said, something was terribly wrong and I needed to find out. So what did you find out? And I told them. I said, he has been sexually assaulting his daughter who's now missing and we're looking for a killer. You've got to arrest him. To my surprise, they did not. They were getting somewhere in the region of 1,000 volunteers to search all the moors. People were flocking there. It had caught the public's attention. And they were flocking to assist, tramping over the moors, looking for any form of clues. And the police said, if we take him in, we still have to find a body. The fact that he may be guilty of sexual interference with a minor doesn't mean to say that he killed her, and we will lose the public support. And right now we need the public support to cover these moors to try and find a body. To me, that was totally wrong. And I remember I sat him down one evening, I sat in his house, and I remember him even today. He's written a book about it as well. And I put a bottle of whiskey on the table. I said, now we'll drink this together and you'll tell me the truth. I didn't kill her. But you did this. I didn't kill her. Some time went on, and the News of the World approached me and said, we're reopening the case. And the young girl's sister, Tanya, trusts you and would like to speak to you. I spoke to her. And she admitted that her father had been doing it to her as well, and that she knew all about it. The mother and everybody knew about it. As a result of which, the reporters faced him, John Tate, and said, right, we're going to put this story out. We're going to expose the story. I did not kill my daughter. We are publishing on Sunday. On the Saturday, he went to Fleet Street and literally knocked on every newspaper door to try and sell the story, his story. One newspaper bought it, in which he said, yes, I did sexually assault Jeanette Tate, but I didn't kill her. And the headline was, Father's Confession of Shame. It's never been solved. I have no evidence to say that John Tate did or was responsible for the disappearance of his daughter. I have no evidence whatsoever. Neither will I commit myself to what I feel about it. But it's never been solved. There's still time. It might be.